Hello, JikookVerse family. Welcome back to JikookVerse. Today, we are talking about a moment that would have every Jikook heart completely unable to function. Because during day one at Rogers Stadium in Toronto, Canada, Jimin and Jungkook gave us a moment that looked like it had walked straight out of a romance movie. And yes, we are talking about that hug. The hug from behind. The one where Jimin came up behind Jungkook and wrapped his arms around him, creating a picture so dramatic, so soft, and so unexpectedly cinematic that the first thought crossing everyone's mind was not simply, they are hugging. No, the immediate thought was Jack and Rose from Titanic. That is how dramatic this moment felt. And if you are part of the JikookVerse family, you already know why this particular image is sending everyone into emotional chaos. Rogers Stadium was already full of energy during day one. The atmosphere in Toronto was intense from the beginning, with fans waiting for every interaction, every smile, every little glance, and every moment that could become a memory. But nobody was prepared for the scene that unfolded when Jimin and Jungkook ended up sharing one of those quiet little moments that somehow became bigger than everything happening around them. Jungkook was standing there, looking completely focused on the crowd and the performance atmosphere around him. And then Jimin appeared behind him. There was no dramatic announcement, no warning, no giant build-up, just Jimin moving closer. And then, suddenly, his arms went around Jungkook from behind. That was it. One simple hug. But somehow, it looked like a scene written specifically to destroy the emotional stability of every Jikook supporter watching, because the position of the hug made the whole thing look completely cinematic. Jungkook was in front. Jimin was behind him. Jimin's arms wrapped around Jungkook. And for that brief moment, the stadium seemed to disappear. It was almost as if the noise of thousands of people faded into the background, and the only thing that mattered was the visual in front of everyone. Jungkook appeared to settle naturally into the moment, while Jimin stayed close behind him. And this is where the Titanic comparison came from. Remember the famous image of Jack and Rose standing together with Rose in front and Jack behind her. Now imagine that emotional movie energy transferred into a stadium setting, with two performers surrounded by thousands of fans, giant lights, cameras, and an atmosphere already charged with emotion. That was the feeling. Not because the moment needed to be dramatic, but because the hug itself was so visually striking. Jimin did not need a complicated gesture. He did not need to say anything. He simply wrapped his arms around Jungkook from behind, and suddenly, everyone had a story to tell. The funniest part is that moments like this often happen in the blink of an eye. A few seconds. Maybe even less, but fans remember those seconds forever. And this one had all the ingredients of a classic Jikook moment. There was closeness, there was affection, there was surprise. And most importantly, there was that unmistakable sense of comfort between two people who were completely at ease sharing the same space. Jimin's personality has always allowed him to turn small gestures into something memorable. A smile can become a moment. A glance can become a conversation without words. A playful touch can make an entire audience scream. And when that energy meets Jungkook, the result can be almost impossible for fans to ignore. During this particular moment, the hug from behind created an entirely different atmosphere. It was softer, quieter, almost like a pause in the middle of the larger concert experience. While everyone else was focused on the scale of the stadium, the lights, the music, and the performance, Jimin and Jungkook created a tiny little world within the larger scene. And that is probably why the moment felt so powerful. Because sometimes the smallest moments become the biggest memories. Think about it. If Jimin had simply stood beside Jungkook, fans might have smiled and moved on. If they had simply exchanged a quick glance, fans would have noticed. But Jimin choosing to move behind Jungkook and wrap his arms around him, that was a completely different level of visual impact. And once fans connected the pose to Jack and Rose, the comparison became almost impossible to escape. Suddenly, the stadium moment was no longer just a hug. It was the Toronto version of a cinematic romance pose. Except instead of the bow of the Titanic, we had Rogers Stadium. Instead of an ocean stretching into the distance, there was a sea of fans. Instead of a movie soundtrack, there was the energy of a live concert. And instead of Jack and Rose, there was Jimin and Jungkook. The result? Absolute emotional destruction. JikookVerse family, you already know the reaction. The second a moment like this happens, the internet practically stops functioning. People start replaying the clip. Then they replay it again. Then they slow it down. Then they look at Jimin's expression. Then Jungkook's expression. Then they look at the hug itself. Then they go back to the beginning because they are convinced they missed something. And after watching it approximately 50 times, everyone reaches the same conclusion. Why was that so adorable? What made the moment even more memorable was how natural the gesture appeared. There was no feeling of forced choreography in the image. It looked like one of those spontaneous interactions that happens when two people are comfortable around each other. Jimin simply moved closer. Jungkook was there, and the hug happened. Sometimes, that simplicity is exactly what makes a moment special. There is something about a back hug that carries a completely different emotional language from a regular hug. When two people face each other and hug, there is a sense of direct connection. But when one person hugs the other from behind, the image becomes softer. The person in front does not have to turn around. They can simply relax into the embrace. And that was the visual energy fans were reacting to. Jimin behind Jungkook, Jungkook in front, arms around him. And the stadium lights creating the perfect backdrop. Honestly, if someone had told us this scene was part of a movie, nobody would have questioned it. But the most entertaining part is how quickly fans transformed the moment into a cinematic reference. The Titanic comparison did not come from nowhere. It came from the pose. Jungkook in front, Jimin behind, the embrace, the atmosphere, the sheer emotional drama of it all. And suddenly, the iconic Jack and Rose energy had entered the Jikook universe. Of course, there is also something incredibly funny about comparing a massive concert stadium in Toronto to one of the most famous movie scenes in cinematic history. Because the circumstances could not be more different. Jack and Rose had an ocean. Jimin and Jungkook had a stadium. Jack had the wind. Jimin had concert lights. Rose had the Atlantic Ocean stretching behind her. Jungkook had thousands of screaming fans, but somehow, the pose still worked. And that is what makes fan culture so entertaining. One tiny moment can inspire an entire universe of comparisons, jokes, edits, captions, and emotional reactions. And Jikook fans are especially talented at turning 1 second into a full cinematic production. But beyond the funny Titanic comparison, there is another reason this hug stands out. It is the tenderness. There are countless high-energy moments during concerts, performers jumping, singing, dancing, running across the stage, interacting with the audience. But then there are moments where everything becomes calm for just a second. The hug was one of those moments. Jimin was not doing anything complicated. Jungkook was not doing anything complicated. They were simply together, and somehow that was enough. The contrast between the massive environment and the intimate gesture made the moment even more noticeable. Rogers Stadium is huge, the audience is huge, the production is huge. Everything about a major concert is designed to feel larger than life. And then, right in the middle of all that scale, you get a tiny human moment, a hug. That contrast is powerful. Because when you see thousands of people reacting to a performer, you are reminded of the scale of the event. But when you see one performer quietly embrace another, the moment suddenly feels personal. And that is exactly the type of scene fans remember. Not necessarily because it lasted long, but because it felt different from everything around it. Jimin has always had a way of creating warmth in small interactions, and Jungkook often responds with that same relaxed energy. So when they share a moment like this, fans naturally pay attention. There is something almost comforting about seeing two familiar faces in a giant environment simply enjoying each other's presence. And that is what makes the Toronto moment so memorable. It was not just about the hug. It was about the timing, the setting, the pose, the expressions, and the reaction it created. Now, let's talk about Jungkook for a moment, because being the person receiving the back hug creates a completely different visual. Jungkook was already standing in the center of the atmosphere. Then Jimin came from behind. Instead of turning the moment into something exaggerated, Jungkook remained in the embrace. That tiny detail is part of why the image feels so natural. There is no need for a dramatic reaction. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply allowing the moment to happen. And Jimin's position behind him made the whole thing even more visually recognizable. Arms around Jungkook, head close. Jungkook standing in front, the audience watching. And suddenly, the entire scene becomes instantly recognizable. It is the kind of image that needs almost no explanation. You see it once and understand why fans started making the Titanic comparison. And then there is Jimin. Because Jimin being the one to initiate the back hug makes the scene even more characteristic of the playful, affectionate energy fans associate with him. There is something very Jimin about taking a simple moment and making it unforgettable. He did not need to announce anything. He did not need to make a big gesture toward the crowd. He simply stepped closer to Jungkook, and that was enough. The reaction from the crowd would naturally become part of the moment too. Imagine thousands of people realizing what is happening at almost exactly the same time. 1 second, everyone is watching the concert. The next second, Jimin is hugging Jungkook from behind. And suddenly, the entire audience energy changes. There is that collective reaction. The screaming, the laughter, the excitement, the realization that everyone just witnessed a moment that will probably be replayed again and again. This is what makes live performances different from edited content. You never know exactly when a memorable moment is going to happen. There can be rehearsed sections, planned interactions, carefully designed performances, but then there are these little spontaneous feeling moments that become the memories people carry home, and the Toronto back hug belongs in that category. It is also worth noting how quickly a visual like this becomes part of the larger fan conversation. One person sees the hug. Another person says it looks like Jack and Rose. Someone else notices the pose. Another person starts comparing the atmosphere. Then someone creates an edit. Someone adds music. Someone writes a caption. And suddenly, one simple hug becomes an entire cultural event inside the fandom. That is the power of a memorable image, and this image has everything. The stadium, the lights, Jimin, Jungkook, the back hug, and the Titanic reference. Honestly, the combination is almost unfair. If the goal was to make Jikook fans emotional, this moment succeeded. But there is another layer that makes the scene especially charming. Jimin and Jungkook were not standing in some quiet private room. They were surrounded by the energy of a massive stadium. There were people everywhere. The atmosphere was loud. The stage was active. And yet the hug created a tiny moment of stillness. That is the magic of live concerts. You can be surrounded by tens of thousands of people and still have one small interaction capture everyone's attention. And when that interaction involves Jimin and Jungkook, fans are obviously going to notice. The visual also plays with perspective in a way that makes it look even more cinematic. From the audience's point of view, Jungkook is visible in front. Jimin is behind him. The arms create a frame around Jungkook. The stadium lights create the background, and the entire composition almost looks intentionally designed. But that is the funny thing about memorable concert moments. Sometimes you do not need a complicated production. Sometimes the people themselves create the picture. And that is exactly what happened here. Jimin and Jungkook simply occupied the same space in a very sweet way, and the result became unforgettable. Now, let's imagine the reaction from someone who had never seen Jikook content before. They walk into Rogers Stadium. They are enjoying the concert. They hear the crowd suddenly get louder. They look toward the stage. And what do they see? Jimin hugging Jungkook from behind. Then someone nearby starts saying Jack and Rose. Another person is laughing. Another person is recording. Another person is probably already planning an edit before the hug is even over. That is how quickly fandom moments happen. And once the moment is over, the memory becomes even bigger. Because now everyone starts asking the same question. Did that really just happen? The answer, for the purpose of our Toronto moment, is yes. And the next question is always, why did it look so romantic? Well, perhaps it is simply the combination of the pose and the setting. A back hug is naturally affectionate. Add stadium lights. Add thousands of fans. Add Jimin, add Jungkook, then throw in the Titanic comparison. And suddenly, we have a scene that feels like a full movie trailer. If Titanic had been filmed at a concert in Toronto, perhaps this would have been the scene. Jungkook standing in front, Jimin behind him, the crowd screaming. The lights glowing, and the entire fandom collectively losing its ability to behave normally. That is the kind of moment that makes a concert unforgettable. And for Jikook fans, the emotional impact goes beyond the joke. Because fans often treasure small interactions more than huge performance moments. A powerful dance break can be incredible. A perfect vocal performance can be unforgettable. But a simple hug can become the moment everyone talks about afterward. Why? Because it feels human. It is not about technical skill. It is not about choreography, it is about connection. And that is what fans saw in this particular scene. Jimin and Jungkook sharing a warm moment in the middle of an enormous concert environment. There is something beautiful about that contrast. The stage can be huge, the production can be spectacular. But sometimes the smallest gesture becomes the emotional center of the entire night. And that is exactly why the Toronto back hug deserves attention. It is not the longest moment. It is not the loudest moment. It is not necessarily the most complicated moment. But it is one of those moments that makes people smile every time they see it. And once the Jack and Rose comparison entered the conversation, there was no turning back. Suddenly, every angle became important. Every frame became important. The way Jimin positioned himself, the way Jungkook stood. The distance between them, the timing, the reaction, everything became part of the moment. And this is where the JikookVerse family always brings the energy, because Jikook fans know how to appreciate the tiny details. You can watch the same clip 10 times and notice something different on the 11th. Maybe you notice Jimin's expression. Maybe you notice Jungkook's reaction. Maybe you notice how quickly the crowd responds. Maybe you notice the way the hug changes the atmosphere. And then you watch it again. Because apparently one replay is never enough. Let's be honest. A moment like this was always going to be replayed. The back hug alone would have been enough. But the fact that it visually resembled one of the most recognizable romantic poses in movie history, that took it to another level. Jimin basically gave the fandom a cinematic reference without needing a script. Jungkook became Rose, Jimin became Jack, Rogers Stadium became the ocean, and the JikookVerse family became the audience screaming at the screen. It is almost too perfect. But perhaps the most important thing about this moment is how naturally it fits into the larger atmosphere of a concert. Performers spend hours preparing. There are rehearsals, there are lights, there are stage directions, there are cameras, there are thousands of details happening simultaneously. Yet what fans remember most can sometimes be something completely simple. A smile, a laugh, a touch. A hug in this was one of those hugs. There is also something comforting about seeing affection expressed without needing a big explanation. The hug speaks for itself. There is no need to turn it into something complicated. Jimin hugged Jungkook. Jungkook remained there, the crowd reacted, and fans remembered it. Sometimes that is the entire story, and honestly, that is enough. Because the magic of moments like this comes from allowing them to simply be what they are. A warm interaction, a memorable concert moment, a beautiful visual, and for the JikookVerse family, an unforgettable addition to the list of moments that will be replayed forever. The Toronto setting makes it even more special. Canada has a way of creating incredible concert memories, and Rogers Stadium provided the perfect backdrop for a moment that felt larger than life. The scale of the venue contrasted beautifully with the simplicity of the gesture. Jimin did not need the entire stadium to be quiet. He did not need a spotlight. He did not need a special announcement. He just needed Jungkook standing in front of him, and then the moment happened. That is why this scene feels so memorable. It was simple enough to feel natural, but visually striking enough to become iconic. And the Jack and Rose comparison adds a layer of humor that makes the whole thing even more enjoyable. Because let's be honest, the moment fans saw that pose, there was probably only one thought. My heart will go on. Except this time, the heart belongs to the Jikook fandom. And if you are watching this right now, you probably already know exactly what frame we are talking about. That frame. The one where Jimin is behind Jungkook. The one where his arms are wrapped around him. The one that makes the entire stadium feel like a movie set. The one that makes you stop the video and stare for a few seconds. Yes, that one. And if you have already replayed it more times than you want to admit, welcome to the family. Because nobody is judging you here. We are all equally responsible. But there is still one thing we should appreciate about the moment. It made people happy. In the middle of a massive concert, one simple gesture created thousands of smiles. People laughed, people screamed, people captured the memory, people talked about it afterward. And that is exactly what unforgettable concert moments are supposed to do. They give people something to remember, something to talk about, something to smile about long after the lights go down. For the JikookVerse family, this back hug is going straight into that category. The category of moments that require absolutely no explanation. You see the picture, you understand. Jimin, Jungkook, a back hug Rogers Stadium, Toronto. And suddenly, Jack and Rose have entered the conversation. The funny thing is, if someone had tried to plan the perfect visual for a Jikook fan edit, they might have struggled to make it look this natural. But the actual moment did the work itself. The positioning was perfect. The timing was perfect. The setting was perfect. And the emotional reaction was immediate. That is why it became so memorable. Not because it was huge, but because it was simple. And sometimes simple is more powerful than spectacular. So, JikookVerse family, if you were standing inside Rogers Stadium during day one, this is definitely one of those moments you would remember on the way home. You might forget a few songs. You might forget exactly which light sequence happened during which performance. You might forget what happened 5 minutes before. But you would probably remember the moment Jimin walked behind Jungkook and wrapped his arms around him. Because that image stays. And years from now, someone could still bring it up and say, "Remember Toronto? Remember the back hug?" Remember when Jimin and Jungkook suddenly looked like Jack and Rose? And everyone would know exactly what they meant. That is the power of a moment that connects with people. It becomes shorthand for an entire memory. And for Jikook fans, this one is especially easy to remember. Jimin behind Jungkook, Jungkook in front, arms wrapped around him, the crowd reacting, the stadium lights shining, and the whole thing looking like a scene from a movie. There is something almost poetic about it. A giant stadium filled with people, yet one small embrace becomes the image that captures everyone's attention. That is what makes the entertainment world so fascinating. The biggest moments are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes, they are the quiet gestures happening between the larger events. And this back hug was exactly that. A quiet gesture that somehow became incredibly loud in the hearts of fans. So now, let's give the moment its proper title. Not just a back hug, not just a Toronto interaction, not just another concert memory. This was the moment Jimin and Jungkook accidentally gave JikookVerse a Titanic scene. Jack and Rose, we know them. But tonight, the fandom had its own version. And honestly, it was adorable. The comparison may be playful, but the image itself is undeniably memorable. There is warmth in it. There is comfort in it. There is that unmistakable concert magic that happens when two people share a small moment while thousands of fans watch. And that is why everyone is still talking about it. The hug may have lasted only a few seconds, but the reaction lasted much longer. And that is the true measure of a memorable moment. It does not have to last long to stay with you. Sometimes a few seconds are enough. Sometimes one gesture is enough. Sometimes one image is enough. And in this case, one back hug was more than enough. So, JikookVerse family, let's be honest. If Jimin had walked up behind Jungkook and hugged him like that in a movie, we would have called the scene romantic. If a director had staged the exact same pose, we would have called it cinematic. If a photographer had captured the exact frame, we would have called it iconic. But because it happened in the middle of a live concert, surrounded by real audience energy and the chaos of a huge stadium, it became something even more special. It became a memory. A moment fans could experience together. A moment that could be replayed. A moment that could make people smile every time they saw it. And that is exactly what makes the JikookVerse family so passionate. We love the big performances. We love the music. We love the stage. But we also love the tiny moments. The ones that happen between everything else. The ones that make you pause, the ones that make you laugh, the ones that make you say, "Wait, did you see that?" And yes, we saw that. We all saw that. Jimin hugging Jungkook from behind. Jack and Rose energy at Rogers Stadium. Toronto giving the Jikook fandom another unforgettable memory. And now, before we close today's report, there is one question. Was the hug cute? Absolutely. Was the Titanic comparison dramatic? Completely. Did the pose deserve the comparison? Let's just say that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And did the JikookVerse family survive? That remains under investigation. Because honestly, the emotional damage from that one hug may require several days of recovery. But that is what makes these moments fun. We can laugh about them. We can replay them. We can appreciate the warmth. We can enjoy the chemistry. And we can keep the memory alive. So if you were there in Toronto, consider yourself incredibly lucky to have witnessed such a memorable concert moment. And if you were not there, well, welcome to the emotional replay department. Because this is one of those moments you are going to want to see again, and probably one more time just to make sure you caught every little detail. Jimin behind Jungkook. Jungkook standing in front, arms wrapped around him, Rogers Stadium in the background, the crowd reacting, and the entire scene giving us the most unexpected Jack and Rose energy imaginable. That is the story. One hug, one stadium, one unforgettable visual, and one fandom collectively losing its mind. JikookVerse family, if this moment made your heart stop for a second, you are definitely not alone. Because sometimes a concert gives you a performance, sometimes it gives you a memory, and sometimes it gives you a moment that looks like it belongs in a movie. This was that moment. From Toronto to the JikookVerse family around the world, that back hug is officially one of those scenes we will remember. And honestly, Jimin did not even need a boat. He just needed Jungkook standing in front of him. Jack and Rose could keep the ocean. Jikook had Rogers Stadium, and for one unforgettable moment, that was more than enough. Thank you for joining us here at JikookVerse. If you are part of this family, you already know what to do. Stay with us for more Jikook moments, more updates, more reactions, and more of those tiny interactions that somehow become the biggest memories. This is JikookVerse, and we will see you in the next one.